we have cataloged 1 trillion anomalies.
But this one is unique. It broadcasts a threat.
And a declaration of its chaotic nature. This is the story of how we analyzed it, and why we destroyed it. In cycle 9.3 megacycle, our deep field sensors registered an anomaly, an object moving in violation of natural gravitational currents. Its trajectory was primitive, a simple ballistic arc, propelled by a crude, brute force chemical reaction. Standard protocol was initiated. Sublight interceptors were deployed to conduct a close-range, non-invasive analysis. The interceptors confirmed the initial long-range analysis. The object's construction was crude, its movements uncontrolled. It was derelict. The object showed extreme age. Its outer shell was pitted by micrometeoroids over countless cycles of travel through unshielded space. Material analysis confirmed a pre-fusion technological origin. It was a relic, a fossil from a civilization yet to master the atom. Most intriguing was a low-energy, wide-spectrum broadcast, a primitive attempt at communication, or a territorial call. The broadcast contained schematics of the life form that created it. A fragile, bipedal carbon unit with a grossly inefficient bilateral symmetry.
It displays its fragile limbs and reproductive organs openly.
A threat display, common among territorial organisms. The raised appendage, a gesture of aggression.
It also broadcast a map to its system of origin, a remarkably naive act of territorial declaration.
A scan of the origin system confirmed our fears. The third planet is a chaotic, saturated biosphere, a perfect incubator for such a vector. The acoustic portion of the message was even more puzzling. A chaotic flurry of atmospheric vibrations, lacking any coherent mathematical structure. Initial analysis is complete. The object is not a natural phenomenon. It is an artifact of a primitive, aggressive, and strangely exhibitionist species. Further behavioral analysis is required. Before recommending a final protocol, a deeper analysis of the vector's core data was required. We had to understand the mind of its creators. The task would be difficult. The data was chaotic, emotional, deeply illogical, a window into a profoundly alien mind. The artifact's primary feature is a disk, inscribed with rudimentary data, a message. We dedicated significant resources to its decryption. It contained a catalog of its biosphere, the screech of primitive machinery, the distress calls of a lesser species, the ritualistic exchange of nutrients. Their structures are inefficiently ornate, suggesting a society based on rigid hierarchies and ritualistic displays of dominance. Their transportation methods rely on crude, polluting chemical reactions, encased in hardened shells, a clear indicator of a hostile environment and interspecies aggression. The core of their biological code is a chaotic, double helix structure, prone to random, uncontrolled mutation. It is inefficient and dangerous, a blueprint for disease. MI.
The most disturbing signal was a direct recording of the organism's neural activity. It is erratic, illogical, and prone to chaotic spikes of emotion.
Their understanding of the universe's fundamental building block is elementary. They depict the simple hydrogen atom.
During our analysis, the object suddenly exhibited new behavior. It expelled a cloud of its own propellant.
The purpose of this action was unclear. It was not a significant course correction. It was not a defensive measure. It appears to be an act of spasm, a malfunction, or a ritual of waste.
The object then deployed a long, articulated appendage, a sensory organ,
Or a primitive weapon. Its function was unclear, but its form was inherently threatening.
Schematics also included this map. It depicts the object originating from the third world of its star system and moving outwards. The behavior is consistent with that of a spore, a method of propagation that leaves its host environment to seek a new one. The behavior is consistent with that of a spore, a method of propagation that leaves its host environment to seek a new one. Alternative hypothesis: the object is a non-hostile explorer. The threat data could be a catastrophic cultural misinterpretation.
This hypothesis was flagged as statistically improbable and emotionally biased. Protocol dictates we assume the worst-case scenario.
We must proceed based only on the observable data, the aggressive schematics, the chaotic consciousness, and the propagation vector. When all data points are synthesized, the threat displays, the territorial claims, the chaotic consciousness, and the spore-like trajectory, a new classification becomes necessary. The object is not an explorer. It is a vector.
To gather further data, we initiated a passive behavioral study, anticipating more irrational actions.
The preliminary findings were presented to the Council of Oversight for final review.
The primary question was no longer, what is it, but what is its intent?
The reclassification required a new analytical framework. We were no longer studying an artifact. We were studying a potential contagion. All previous data was recontextualized. The creator's chaotic neural activity, now viewed as a symptom of infection.
All previous data was recontextualized. The creator's chaotic neural activity, now viewed as a symptom of infection.
To gather further data, we initiated a passive behavioral study, anticipating more irrational actions.
It scanned the ambient radiation of its local star. The action was consistent with navigation, but its trajectory was already fixed. The behavior appeared redundant. The object then exhibited new behavior. It reoriented its primary broadcast dish toward a dense star cluster. It was not a passive broadcast. It was actively searching. We theorized it was looking for a suitable host system with a high density of life-bearing worlds. Then came the most alarming action. The vector released a cloud of complex compounds into the void. Our models were clear. This was not an experiment. This was a method of panspermia, an attempt to spread its core code across interstellar distances. The creator's own schematic confirmed this. Their primary function, like all such organisms, is replication. The object is simply an extension of this imperative.
The replication code contained vast sections of dormant, non-functional data,
Remnants of countless failed evolutionary paths. Their biology is built on a foundation of errors.
Simulations suggest that such a chaotic code, if introduced into a stable ecosystem, would not integrate. It would corrupt. It would consume.
This reframed our understanding of the map. It was not a claim of territory. It was a list of prior infections.
The behavioral analysis was complete. The object's actions, while seemingly random, all pointed to a single, logical conclusion. It is not an explorer. It is not a messenger. It is a self-replicating data parasite, and its only purpose is to infect.
The analysis phase is complete. The next phase is determining a response.
The counter-argument was presented. The vector's chaotic nature is, in itself, a threat. Even if its intent is not hostile, its very existence is a biological and informational contaminant.
Our first directive is the preservation of cosmic stability. The vector, by its very nature, represents instability. The debate was concluded.
The record of our findings will be preserved. The anomaly itself will be corrected.
Continued observation was deemed an unnecessary risk. The vector's potential for replication, however primitive, could not be ignored.
The initial recommendation was quarantine, a standard protocol for containing low-level viral threats.
But as the quarantine protocol was being calculated, the vector exhibited a new, highly energetic behavior.
It began to power up its main broadcast system, a final, desperate attempt to spread its code before containment.
This changed the calculation. The threat was not passive.
It was actively attempting to propagate. Quarantine was no longer a sufficient response.
The probability of the vector successfully seeding another system was low.
But in our logic, any probability greater than 0 is an unacceptable risk. The final recommendation was logged.
A sterilization unit was dispatched to the target coordinates. The analysis of the exhibit is now complete. A curious artifact from a chaotic, aggressive, and ultimately viral form of life.
A shame that its first message will also be its last.
Continued observation was deemed an unacceptable risk. The vector's potential for replication, however primitive, could not be ignored.
The probability of the vector successfully seeding another system was low.
But in our logic, any probability greater than 0 is an unacceptable risk.
The final recommendation was logged. The protocol is absolute.
A sterilization unit was dispatched to the target coordinates.
The unit itself was a work of art, a perfect fusion of geometry and energy, a scalpel designed to excise imperfections from the universe.
Its primary function, to create a localized event of total entropy, a bubble of pure nothingness. The analysis of the is now complete.
A curious artifact from a chaotic, aggressive, and ultimately viral form of life. A shame that its first message will also be its last.
Sterilization of the vector and its trajectory is confirmed.
The anomaly is resolved. The silence of space is once again perfect.
The record of our findings will be stored in the deep archives for future reference.
Its designation is now added to the archive of cosmic threats, a single data point among trillions.
The work continues. The search for anomalies is endless.